Ho ho! Happy holidays, everyone! It's me, Santa Nate. And this holiday season, we've got a special treat for you. Edenverse Volume 1 is on sale on Amazon.com for 99 cents. Buy 5 copies for the price of 1! Ho 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 ho!
Give them to someone you hate.
Words About Books is a poorly spoken podcast. Each week, we discuss a book or something related to literature and discuss that topic while one of us loudly eats into the mic. I'm Nate, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Hungry Ben. How's it going, Hungry?
You always pick like lunch or dinner time to record.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, today, we've got Haroun and the Sea of Stories. Haroun and the Sea of Stories by Salman Rushdie. Or I guess Sir Salman Rushdie.
Sir, was he British?
He's a British Indian novelist. So, yeah. I think he was born in... Hold on. Let me just... You go ahead and talk about your Haroun. I think he was born like Pakistan or northern India or something.
Yeah. Huh. No, all I can think when I read the name Haroun in the Sea of Stories is Richard Nixon from Futurama going, Haroun!
Yeah, he was born in Bombay, which was British India at the time.
Ah, okay. So he was knighted then.
Yeah, he was knighted.
I know that's your dream.
That is my dream. I don't know if I'm any closer to it than the last time we talked about Sir Terry Pratchett.
Perhaps further away.
Yeah, possibly. The Queen probably likes me even less now. I know she listens to our podcast and she's a little upset.
Sup, Babs?
All right, you want me to do about the author on Sir Salman Rushdie?
Yeah, I mean, unless you want me to keep speaking directly to Queen Elizabeth, as we do from time to time.
You can do that. You can do that in your own time.
And I will.
So he wrote this book, Haroun and the Sea of Stories, in 1990. So this book is actually as old as I am. And yes, I am making this about me.
I was going to say, it's just slightly older than our joke about Richard Nixon from Futurama.
So this book was actually a response to the critical reception he received from his previous book, The Satanic Verses.
Critical reception is a good way to put it.
Yeah, critical reception as in he has a hit out on his head. He has a fatwa from the Ayatollah of Iran for a lot of money to kill him. And so he had to spend several years in protective custody and in hiding.
Is he not in hiding anymore?
I'm sure he probably is. He's got to be, right?
I'm sure he's got guards at the very least.
Yeah, because the fatwa was never rescinded because they were like, it can only be rescinded by the person who put it out. And that guy has since passed away. So
can I ask you chose this book.
I did.
The only thing I knew about Salman Rushdie going into this was that he was a writer who pissed off the Ayatollah. I don't know what he said exactly. I don't know what the book is about, the Satanic Verses.
I think it portrays the Prophet Muhammad in a light that is, shall we say, controversial. Less than great, and
is it fiction?
I think it's fiction.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's similar to the style that he has for Haroun and the Sea of Stories. From what I've seen on it, I haven't actually read it. No. No, it's got kind of the magical realism though that he's known for that style, and that's definitely present in Haroun.
Okay.
So the title refers to the Satanic Verses, which are a group of verses that refer to 3 pagan Meccan goddesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not as well read on this as I probably should be. Yeah. Okay. That was just interesting. I never knew what he did. I knew he wrote something they didn't like, but that was it.
Yeah, he pissed off a lot of Muslims, and his book was burned far and wide. It's banned in India. I think it's banned in Pakistan and pretty much the entire Middle East. And it's accused of hate speech towards Muslims for its depiction of Muhammad.
Is he an atheist then? Was he like
he was
born
born
Muslim?
he was born as an Indian Muslim, and he is now a staunch atheist.
Yeah, well,
I think that a fatwa will probably do that. So this book was, from what I've read and what I've heard, this was meant for his son to explain kind of, what's happening to the family, why he can't be with his son, or why they're in hiding. There's strong themes of censorship versus free speech and the power of names and languages in this book. And I also saw, and I think it was on Wikipedia, which is just the greatest place to do your research, that this is some sort of commentary on the country of India, but like all that stuff just flew right over my head.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you, like, I didn't dislike this book, but I had also heard that this book was trying to explain his situation to his son, and I can only imagine his son is infinitely more confused than he was when he started. Because I didn't get the nuances of this at all. And did his wife run away with another man?
His wife ran away with a man who embodies censorship, and then they went to a moon, and they used the power of free speech to destroy evil corporation and censorship, and then his mom came back. Obviously, that's what happened.
It's an allegory for something. I don't know. Okay, like I'll say this, like before we get into the summary, it's obviously geared towards a younger audience.
Yep.
It has big, I won't say transparent, but like easy to understand allegories about free speech and censorship. But as far as Rushdie's situation in specific, nope. Didn't get any of that. But no, please take us through the summary. I have things to say.
Yes, I'm sure we'll be making frequent trips to the douche philosophy corner.
I don't know about that, but
all right. So the story is set in the country of Aleph Bay. It's like alphabet in Hindu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hindi,
Hindu, Hindustani was what he says in the book.
I'm gonna take you to Ben's etymology corner.
We just keep building corners into this weird house.
Hindustani is a group of mutually intelligible languages that encompasses Urdu and Hindi, which are primarily spoken in North India and Pakistan.
Okay, that makes sense because that's where he was born.
The fun fact, like I believe these languages are also part of the Proto-Indo-European family, and so they're actually not super closely related to English, but we share a common root language.
Oh my God. We learned something on this podcast today. Yay. All right. So the main character is Haroun Khalifa.
Khalifa, yes. Yeah.
His father is Rashid Khalifa, and his mother is Soria Khalifa.
I'm going to say Soraya.
Okay. And they all reside in a town that's so sad it has forgotten its name. So Rashid's a storyteller who claims to get his stories from a magical water tap, and his mother sings beautiful songs. But then one day his mother stops singing, and Rashid just like doesn't notice because he's a bad spouse. Their neighbor is Mr. Sengupta. Well, fuck, I overcorrected because that's how I read it in my head, but I was like, I probably fucked up. So he's a douche. He's a douche businessman, constantly shits all over Haroun's dad and his stories. And eventually he runs off with Haroun's mother, who just abandons Haroun, and Sengupta, and he abandons his own wife. So they're just fucking the worst. And I guess the clock was at 11 when his mother left, and as a result, Haroun is stuck in time. He's unable to focus on anything for longer than 11 minutes.
Why'd you say that like it was like a trailer moment? He's stuck in time.
Because you're going to make this into a trailer, Ben. You're going to do it.
Yeah. So this is, I just say like put a pin in this because we're going to be coming back to this situation of
the 11 minutes that he can't focus for.
The 11 minutes and just the fact that the mother runs away on a romantic tryst with the neighbor who also leaves his, like they both abandon their families and they run away. So just keep that in mind.
I will keep it in mind.
Remember that because I feel like the story forgets it.
Well, they do spend a decent chunk of time being just depressed as fuck. And in fact, Rashid decides to get a job for a local politician, but Batu. Okay.
I feel you've undersold Rashid's profession.
Okay.
He is the Shah of Blah. He is the
Ocean of Notions.
Ocean of Notion, Mother of Dragons. He is like storyteller number one.
He's like Homer, modern day Homer.
And he makes his money not by writing stories and selling them, as one may imagine, but instead makes his money by speaking at political rallies.
As you do.
And
I've been booked with George W. Bush for December.
I'll tell you now, I had problems with the beginning of this book and I had problems with the end of this book. And this is one of the problems I had with the beginning. And I don't necessarily know that it is a like objective problem with the book, but I found it jarring that in what is clearly a fairy tale world where they have factories that manufacture sadness in the sad town where everybody's forgotten its name because they're so sad, he speaks at political rallies. That's oddly real.
I was gonna say he helps manufacture that sadness, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say like that's a very strange real profession, and I can only imagine that Salman Rushdie spoke at political rallies. Did he? I don't know, but that's such a weird thing. Like that's not typically where you find. I mean, I guess it is, but that's not typically where you want to find your storytellers, your spinners of fantasy. But it's an interesting commentary on political rallies that I'm sure many children took to heart. Go on.
Many children took to heart. Well, it's funny. I'm glad you mentioned these political rallies, Ben, because now that Rashid's wife has run away with the neighbor, Rashid can't say anything anymore. All that comes out is arc, 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 arc. So his not only is his love life and home life going down the shitter, but also so is his business life. Oh yeah, I guess I need to also point out they go off to the Valley of K in the land of G. Like everything is named after a letter, and there's too many areas and not enough letters.
So yeah.
So
how to discuss it? Like it's very fairy tale land. It's got like this Alice in Wonderland quality to it, where things are just constructs of concepts and nothing really needs to make sense. It's all just kind of very whimsical, and
except for the political rallies.
Those are surprisingly real. But he describes it as each town only remembers like the first letter of their name, and as a result there are obviously more than 26 towns in the world, and in
Aleph Bay.
So the mail just often gets lost because if you address your letter to so and so from town G, that could be any of the G's.
Yeah, that was a weird. You asked me, is this like a commentary on the postal service or something? What is this?
Yeah, I was wondering, like, is this a thing in India or Pakistan that mail gets lost? I suppose it would. I couldn't tell if he was just I couldn't tell when he was just making a joke and when he was actually doing an allegory, because there are certain bits of allegory I pick up on because I know what he's talking about, but there are certain things I know I'm missing because I don't get the reference. And I don't think that would matter as much to the target age bracket of this book. But reading it as an adult, I keep trying to like figure out all the references, and it
Right.
was very distracting. But I think like maybe this is an equivalent of like a kids show including jokes for the adults. Like if you were to read this book to a child, which you very easily could, it's a pretty decent book for that. That might be something for like the parent to like, haha, yes, mail is bad.
What a hilarious joke you've crafted here.
I tried to mail in my ballot to the land of H, but it got lost, and now we have to throw out the election.
Oh God, it is. It is. It's an allegory for modern days. How did he know?
Oh, Christ.
There's also a lot of references to the Arabian Nights. That's what this houseboat that we're about to talk about is called. And Haroun and Rashid is actually Haroun al-Rashid, the Caliph of Baghdad, who was recognized as being the first caliph, right? Not caliph. I don't know what's fucking going on.
I say caliphate.
Yeah, caliphate and caliph is whatever. He was the guy who I guess was the caliph or caliph during the Arabian Nights.
There's
that reference. And what's going on with the loss of time? Is that just like a take on depression or what?
What do you mean the loss of time?
Where Haroun can't seem to concentrate on anything for longer than 11 minutes.
It's a recurring, I don't want to say theme, I guess it's more of a motif in the story that, like, as you mentioned, since his mother left, she left and he noticed that the clock was at 11. And since then he can only focus for 11 minutes. I just took that to mean he's broken in some way, that his family breaking has also affected him, that he can't fully engage with his life. He can't fully enjoy anything anymore because this trauma has happened to him.
Depression. It sounds like depression.
Yeah,
a way to show depression.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be just kind of allegorical, yeah, for depression.
And then Haroun asked his father a question that Mr. Sengupta pointed up. Sengupta. What? Fuck, God damn it. I keep overcorrecting, Ben.
I didn't tell you to. I don't know why you're yelling at me.
Yeah, well, because, fuck, I'm always wrong with pronunciation. And I was like, I'm probably wrong here. Let me fix it. Oh, no, I was right.
Why don't you just look it up?
Because it's less funny, Ben. So Mr. Sengupta and Haroun both asked the question, what's the point of stories that aren't even true?
Fuck if I know, kid.
Hopefully we'll come to an answer by the end of this.
I was going to say, the whole point of this podcast was to try to figure it out, and I feel like we've gone way off the rails and actually made less progress.
So after Rashid embarrasses himself at one of these political rallies, he's off to the Valley of K, and they have to like fight for a bus ticket, and then the buses are like fucking around with people. Some of them will start up and people will run to the bus, and then they'll like shut them off and someone else will start up. It's got to be something to do with how shitty transportation is or something. I don't know. And then the other reference is he gets on with the postman. The postman takes him like he doesn't pick up any of the mail. He drives as fast as he can. And he spends a whole bunch of time, and I don't know if this was a joke or what, but he spends a bunch of time pointing out, like, oh, hey, that's where this bus rolled off the mountainside and 34 people died. Oh, and coming up here is another spot where another vehicle flew off the mountain and died. Anyway, I'm going to speed up now. I don't know what that was a reference to. I think it might have just been a joke, maybe.
The only thing I can think is it reminded me of a story I had a friend who was in the military told me of. They were in Afghanistan, and one of their drivers was from, I want to say, like Romania. And apparently you get used to driving on these narrow, windy mountain roads, and this dude was just flying down it. And he said it was like one of the scariest times of his military career. And so
Wow.
I think that may be a reference to, I haven't been to that area of the world, but yeah, there are a lot of windy mountain roads that maybe people go a little too fast on.
Also, they go to the town of K that was vandalized to be like, welcome to Kashmir. Is that saying anything about the real world, Ben?
It sounds like Kashmir.
Yeah, it does. What is it saying anything though, or is it just like here's a reference?
Maybe he's trying to ground this in reality. Like maybe this world is the world after some kind of apocalypse.
They can only make sadness in their factories.
Everybody's forgotten their name.
So they meet Batu.
Batu.
That's how I say it. Batu.
You gotta accent the syllable.
I don't know if you're making fun of me or not. So they go to a houseboat, which is the Arabian Nights +1 or 1001 Arabian Nights, but whatever. And
whatever. It's a joke about a book I didn't read.
Yeah, fuck you.
Quit trying to make me feel dumb, Rushdie.
So the lake is responding to like their emotions. So as they're getting sad or upset, the lake starts smelling like gross. I don't know how that relates to depression. I assumed it was musty.
No, it's a fart joke. Did you not get that? Because they keep talking about how Haroun's denying he did it.
Yeah, I got that part.
Okay.
And Haroun was like, oh no, it's the lake.
Yeah.
The lake is reacting to us. It's a magical lake. Is that okay, so is it a fart joke or is it a magical lake? Or is it both?
It's both.
Okay.
But it is a magical lake.
So they have magical lakes and factories of sadness and political rallies. It's a very odd world that we live in. But that's cool. Haroun and his dad, they try to go to sleep on like really uncomfortable animal-shaped beds, and they decide to switch rooms, and Haroun drifts off to sleep only to be awoken by a magical water genie, Ben, named If. So If is there to disconnect the story water spout. Apparently that was real after all. And Haroun manages to steal his disconnecting device and hold it hostage unless If will take him to the man in charge, who's named the Walrus, to have him reconsider shutting off his dad's story water. And then they fly on a magical, gigantic, robotic bird to the moon. So let's stop here for a moment.
Okay. Do you want to know how my pop culture addled brain pictured this scene?
Shoot.
Okay, so I picture like just standard like 12-year-old kid.
Was Will Smith the water genie?
No.
Damn it.
Standard 12-year-old kid. Purple-haired gnome from World of Warcraft. Both riding on Porygon 2 from Pokemon. That is how I pictured this, and that is how I pictured it for the rest of the book. Now you will too. It's great. In fact, if somebody wants to do terrible meme art of this, like you can just crop these things.
So this is an allusion to Alice in Wonderland, is that right?
I don't know. Is it? Yeah, I guess it's an allusion to Alice in Wonderland or any number of
he falls asleep
fairy
and
tales.
then he awakens into a magical world.
You instantly know when this happens that whatever the adventure, he's going off on an adventure, and whenever he returns, he's not going to be sure if it really happened or not. It's Wizard of Oz, it's Alice in Wonderland, it's any one of those.
And the bird is a hoopoe?
That's how I said it, hoopoe.
What is its significance? Is there one? It's like they said it was like a bird who leads other birds.
That one went over my head. I don't know, maybe this is just my programmer brain. I was like, oh, it's an AI.
Yeah, it's a robot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a psychic AI robot.
So no significance to that we can parse out. Now, why does he act exactly like the postman?
Well, it part of the
like
dream?
The Wizard of Okay.
That's the Wizard of Oz thing where it's like the The Lion, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, they all act kind of like the farmhands. So you're not sure if she's just like transplanted those personalities onto somebody in her dream or if it's really happening. So I that's what I took that to be. So this is actually where I start to like the story. I like everything that happens from here until the time they return to the real world.
Yeah, you like the part where they leave the real world and you hate it when they come back.
Well, okay, so here's the thing with like Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz. Those are both like the real world is shitty
Yeah,
and
she lives
boring.
in Kansas and it's black and
Yeah.
white. It's during the Dust Bowl.
But in this one, the real world is also magical. The factories manufacture sadness. The lake responds to your emotions. Rashid has a subscription to the Sea of Stories water service. It like he's going on a magical adventure, but he's already on a magical adventure. This is a very tiny like nitpick, but once it just goes all the way into the magic, I was like, okay, let's do this. But before, when it was like, I don't know, I feel like
I read that this was part of his style, though, of blending realism with magic.
also it's for kids. So, like the first bit of the book, I was kind of bored.
That's fair.
It wasn't like challenging me. It wasn't.
I read this book like in 2010, I think. No, 2009. And so I wanted to see like how have my opinion of it changed. And yeah, the beginning of this book is boring until they go off on their magic adventure, and then it's awesome.
But like I think it like I don't want to say that's a criticism of the book because it's
supposed to
kids'
be.
book. Yeah, it's
supposed to be that part in Kansas in The Wizard of Oz. You're not supposed to really like that. It's not what you're there for.
It would be fine to read to a kid. They'd probably enjoy all that. They'd probably get a lot more out of the jokes. The kid doesn't know, like if you drive past the industrial district of your town, the kid doesn't know what those factories do. If you tell him they make sadness, that might make sense to him if everybody who comes out of there looks like bleak as shit.
Yeah, I think that's actually what they do make at Frito-Lay. It smells like sadness too.
Well, lucky you. I live next to a Purina factory.
Oh, I'm sorry. That sounds a whole measurement of scale worse.
Smells like dog food whenever it rains.
Oh, gross.
You know what? I changed my mind. He's got a point.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it now.
You're actually convincing me as well. Because I guess where I went to college, there was a Tyson plant there, and they used to burn the blood, and I heard that was
God,
miserable. Yeah.
That's
so if you told a kid
that's
they
so...
make sadness there.
Oh my God, that's enough to turn you vegetarian.
Yeah.
They burn the blood.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's like satanic.
Hey, maybe it was satanic. Maybe they burned it to Lord Capitalism. Anything else, or do we want to go on to Earth's second moon?
Fire up the thrusters, baby.
We're going to Kahani?
Yeah.
Which means story. And it's covered in brilliantly colored water, including some colors he couldn't describe. So Haroun, he instantly said, nope, we need to turn around. He went back home, he hid under his bed, and he wrote about how manly he was, and also the words, who knows what those colors are capable of.
Yeah.
All right.
It was quite literally a color out of space. You know, the thing is, in the Sea of Stories, somewhere,
Lovecraft is in there.
Yeah, the color out of space is in there. You should describe what the Sea of Stories is, because I don't think we actually talked about that yet. So
yeah, and this is one of the things where I think we can't really do it justice. All the magical stuff, because he's a wordsmith and we are amateur at best. But yeah, the Sea of Stories, it's brilliantly colored water of all kinds of stories, and they can like twist with one another to form new stories. Why am I drawing a blank? Ben, what am I missing here?
So the Sea of Stories, I actually thought this was a really interesting way to to try to sort of materialize the concept of creativity when it comes to imagining stories. So the Sea of Stories is described as a swirling mix of colors, liquid in nature, and each color is like a story thread. It's a story stream. And as the stories mix with one another, they become new stories and more interesting stories.
Yeah.
And all the stories in the Sea of Stories sprout from a single source.
The old zone.
Yeah, the old zone where the oldest stories exist. The like I guess in this case like the archetypal stories, like the hero, the villain, the wizard, like all that stuff.
The hero's journey.
Yeah. So the archetypal stories exist there, and they spring into the ocean, and as they go along they change and they become new stories and more interesting. I thought it was a really good way to describe basically the entire nature of myth and fiction. It was
I agree.
yeah, I actually did really like this.
So the genie, if he's like, let's not take you to the walrus. Let's just solve this an easier way. Here, drink this. It's wish water. You drink it and you concentrate really hard on what you want, and your wish will come true the harder you concentrate on it. And unfortunately, Haroun can't focus for more than 11 minutes, so his wish fails. And then they decide that, okay, yeah, we have to go see the walrus after all. But first, here, this will make you feel better. Drink some story water. And he gets basically like a nightmare. Like he
goes on a fucking acid trip.
Yeah, he's a hero who he slays a bunch of villains, and then he has to go rescue the damsel in the tower who isn't Rapunzel because she cut her hair. And as he starts climbing up the tower, his arms start becoming that of a spider. And the princess screams and cuts his arms off, and he falls from the tower, and it's terrifying. And he wakes up like freaked the fuck out, obviously. And this is because, as we learn, the stream of stories have become polluted by the Darksiders of Kahani, the Chup, and their leader, Katam Shud? Katam Shud?
I said Kadam should.
Kadam Shud. That sounds way better. It's the end. That's what it means. It's the end.
And it's Choops.
Choops. Oh, okay. I thought it was Gup and Chup.
Does your version of the book not have a glossary and pronunciation guide at the end?
Oh, fuck, it does. And I was just like, I don't need this shit. So is it Gup still?
It's Gup and Choop.
Oh, that's lame. Fine. Choop. Does it mean anything?
Choop means quiet, and Choopwalla means something like quiet fellow.
Ah. Well, there you go. We just does Gup mean like talks a lot and doesn't ever shut the fuck up?
Yeah, it means gossip. It can also mean nonsense or fib.
There's your conflict. The Lightsiders are the Gups, and they never shut the fuck up or stop talking. And the Darksiders, who follow Kadam Shud? Fuck.
I say, I don't know how to say it. Maybe it does tell me. No, it doesn't say how to pronounce that, but I say Katam Should.
Katam Should.
In my Pennsylvania accent, it's Katam Should. Now go wash yourself in the Sea of Stories.
Oh, that's horrible.
That's how we do it, man.
So the Choop, they are the foe of speech. They follow Katam Should, and they don't talk. And the Gup, they never shut the fuck up, and they live on the light side, and they're the ones who he has to meet about this story water business. And the moon is split into light and dark because the eggheads of Gup built like some process too complicated to explain to keep the moon from rotating, which kind of seems like a dick move. And then they build an invisible wall to keep those Darksiders out. Anything you want to add on there? Should we go to Gup City?
The only thing I would add to that is that Kadam Should has been explained at this point as a phrase meaning like over, done with, the end.
Yes.
So they're literally like the Darksiders are literally following a guy who is the end. So you've got the story people and the end of stories and silence. Do you get it?
Yes. I don't get it. Can you explain it to me?
Okay, it's an allegory for free speech. Because Salman Rushdie was a little put out by the fact that people didn't want him to talk about certain things anymore.
All right. So off to Gup City, where Haroun meets King Chatterjee.
I was going to say, I said Chatterjee.
Chatterjee,
I
walrus.
I think that's English. So,
and fuck you too, Ben. And his son-in-law, Prince Bulu. No, it's Bolo.
Which comes from the verb bolna, to speak.
Yeah, he never stops talking. He always says stupid shit. He always gets himself into trouble. He's constantly sticking his foot in his mouth. And we learn that Princess Batcheat has been kidnapped.
And Batcheat means chit-chat.
Well, it turns out the troops have kidnapped her, and the Gups have arrested a suspicious guy on the Twilight Strip who turns out to be Haroun's dad. Just kind of appears there because he wanted to.
he explains that he's discovered a series of food products.
Yes, and when you eat them before you go to sleep,
you can wake up in your dream, and you can wake up on the second moon.
Yes, and they all take that at face value because.
Well, no, they don't. They ask him how he does it, and he says, "You have to allow me my little secrets."
Yeah, and then they're okay with that instead of beating it out of.
I'm gonna let you know a little secret. The Sea of Stories is just like a bunch of acid tablets dissolved in an above-ground pool.
Well, when this podcast makes it big, we know what we need to invest in.
An above-ground pool.
All right, so back to the story. So the princess was being dumb as hell, and she went to the Twilight Strip to frolic, and the troop realized they could just walk through the wall, and they grab her.
It's almost like you shouldn't have even mentioned there was a wall, because everybody just goes where they want.
Right, and Haroun's dad witnessed all of this. Apparently the wall's in severe disrepair. And
I guess maybe that was supposed to be a thing about the guppies not...
It was about the Mexican-American Wall 2016, Ben. What are you talking about?
I think it was supposed to signal that the guppies are not...
smart, capable of
taking care of things, yeah.
Yeah, he does that later on with the whole old zone being overgrown as hell. So Haroun meets a page, which is a soldier, because pages form chapters, and then chapters... they form a book, and that's your battalion, right? It goes, and there's like a head, whatever.
So the individual
pages
units
are soldiers.
Yeah, pages are soldiers. They're organized.
And then pages form chapters.
They're organized into units called chapters.
And then a battalion is a book.
A book, and then a volume.
Ah, there we go. That was the final. The page's name is Blabbermouth, who turns out to be a girl who can also juggle. Because juggling and storytelling have been equated a few times.
Yeah, dude, I don't get juggling comes up more than you would expect.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 3 times, but that's more than usual.
And at least one of those times was in the real world.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really weird because juggling is about to come up and be very important later.
I did like how... they reveal that Blabbermouth is a girl by her helmet falls off and she's got long flowing dark hair. It's if you're pretending to be a soldier, you can cut your hair.
Right. And you don't need to put it all inside your helmet.
Second, I have long flowing ginger locks and I am hetero as fuck, bro.
You are refusing to cut that shit. Probably for another 2 years.
Yep. Once I get that vaccine, I'll cut my hair.
Oh, geez.
Take that, society.
Society is taking that. They're very upset with you. But yeah, then she threatens to murder Haroun if she rats her out.
Literally.
And then
she chokes him while saying, if you tell anyone, I will kill you.
Yeah. And from there, Haroun gets a little crush on her, as you do. And then the Gup army loads up. It's a bunch of pages, mechanical birds, flower men called gardeners, and fish with like a shitload of mouths called Plentyma fish.
Oh, and that was the dumbest joke in the whole book. I do got to call that out because I highlighted this. Because when Rashid's wife runs away at the beginning, some asshole says to him, I think it's the politician he's working for, says, "Oh, don't worry, there's plenty more fish in the sea." And with a British accent, I guess that's like, "Plenty more fish in the sea." And he's like, "Oh, a plenty more fish. They are in the sea." And I was like, ha ha ha, funny joke.
Well, it's funny when you say it like that, Ben. So, yeah, that's their army, and their army won't shut the hell up, and they're all like arguing back and forth.
They're disorganized because some volumes, like, because each book has a chapter 1, but they don't know which chapter 1 goes to which book, and each volume has like several chapters. Nobody ever thought to like actually organize them.
Yeah, and they're basically questioning the general's orders, and they're debating amongst themselves very loudly. And the question is asked: what is the point of giving persons freedom of speech if you then say they must not utilize it the same?
Yeah, I'm also going to point out something here. It comes up a little later, but might as well mention it here. The army eventually gets their shit together, and Rashid attributes that to like all that speaking
they debated.
All that speaking and debate they did actually brought them closer together. And I'm sorry, Rushdie, that's not been my experience.
No, it's just the opposite.
I'm talking on Twitter a lot these days, and we're not closer.
You can't even get people to agree on an objective reality.
No, it's if 2 + 2 = 4. Well, actually, in extremely large cases of 2, it equals 5.
Good God. I found that a bit suspect as well. They're like, oh, they got their shit together because they debated so much. It's like, yeah, armies don't let their privates say what they're gonna do. That's why the general does all that, right?
Look, you got a lot of freedoms, man. It doesn't mean you got to use them all at once.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to shut up. But in Rushdie's defense, he does acknowledge that with the Darksiders.
And he also acknowledges that with Prince Bolo. I think that part of his character is like, here's what happens when you have unproductive speech. If you're just boisterous and annoying and make everything worse by talking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So they go into the land of Choop, and they see a warrior fighting his own shadow, and the shadow is fighting back. And it's like a dance without music is how he describes it. It's got a lot of grace and beauty to it, even though they're not talking. They just understand each other based on their body language and what they're doing. And so this is where he realizes that silence can also show grace and beauty, and just the same as how speaking can be really annoying and awful. I think he does get there. I think this is around the time he starts to acknowledge that.
Yeah. As soon as they get there, they realize that these people are not actually all bad and that they do have certain valuable qualities.
In fact, this guy was Khatam Shud's number 2. His name is Mudra.
I actually did know this. Mudra is any one of the gestures that make up the Abhinaya language of gesture, which is a real thing.
And that's how he communicates to them.
Yes.
He's basically saying that not everyone follows Khatam Shud out of like loyalty. Some of them just follow. In fact, most of them follow him out of fear. And so if they could defeat Khatam Shud, then most of the Choop would turn to this guy, and this guy wants peace with the Gup. And this is also where we learn that shadows are considered equal to people in Choop. God damn. This is a struggle, Ben.
I know. It sounds like a struggle.
And Khatam Shud has actually performed some sort of black magic that separated himself and his shadow, and they're both now identical and separated. So one of them is at the old zone poisoning the ocean, and the other one is preparing to sacrifice the princess to their god.
And if this all sounds completely out of nowhere and having nothing to do with any of the setup or the rest of the story, stay tuned.
Kind of does.
Yeah, because that's going to be my point about the end.
There's also apparently a social upheaval with shadows being resentful that they're joined to the meatbag people.
What the hell did shadows have to do with anything? I just gotta
exactly.
say,
I was like, that didn't go anywhere.
yeah,
did
it doesn't go anywhere. I don't know what the point of this was. The only point of it seems to be
to get Haroun on his own.
To separate Haroun and Rashid. Which, why is Rashid even there?
So he could tell the story at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole army thing is kind of weird because they separate the army and Rashid, and they go off to the castle to rescue the princess. And then Haroun, if the genie, but the hoopoe, Mali.
I said Molly.
Oh, I called her Mali, but okay. And two plenty fish. They go off with Haroun.
Now Goopy and Baga, come on.
I fucking forgot their name because they don't do anything. They get halfway there and they're like, "Oh, we're really sick. We've got to stay here." And they're like, "All right, bye." They go to the old zone and get captured, except for the gardener.
Yeah, the gardener, who is like the secret badass of the entire story. He just like, I'm just gonna spoil this. The gardener just comes in at the end and just fucks everyone's day up.
Yeah,
it's actually really like out of nowhere. Like Bruce Willis played this gardener.
Yeah, it destroys the engine to the boat and it gets attacked multiple times and just shrugs it off while singing. Like we were saying, the old zone is they're the oldest stories, and they've been neglected since even before they were poisoned. They're all overgrown as shit. They're brought to Katam Shud's flagship, and it's just a gigantic ship. Katam Shud, by the way, looks suspiciously like the man who ran off with Haroun's mom. Yeah, Katam Shud makes it a point that we're conditioned for terrifying, monstrous creatures to look like terrifying monsters from stories, not bureaucrats.
Oh yeah, there's some well, it wouldn't be bad for a kid. I was gonna say fairly on the nose, but you would need to be for a kid. Commentary about the banality of evil.
Yeah. And Haroun notices that not only is Katam Shud, this is the shadow version of him, but everyone on the ship is a shadow that has been separated from its meat person. So Katam Shud does what every James Bond villain does. He gloats at them. He shows them his facilities, all of his poisons. He has a giant plug that he intends to plug the source of all stories with. And as he's doing this, Mali, the tree creature, comes in and wrecks the power generator on the ship while throwing down a sick beat.
Yeah, he's just spitting hot bars while he's wrecking people's lives.
Yeah, he wrecks their lives to the point that Haroun is able to escape and end them. So Haroun, he escapes and he's like, "Hey, you know what? I've still got some wish water." And he wishes for the planet to rotate to bathe this side of the planet in sunlight and thus destroy the shadow creatures. So Haroun has to concentrate for longer than 11 minutes to save the day. And he does. Anything you want to add, or should we go to the other Katam Shud also being defeated?
I was going to say, I guess there's something a little funny to me about Haroun getting over the trauma of his mother abandoning them
by killing
the man she ran away with. Yeah. But go on.
I wonder if he meant that.
Probably not. No, I don't think he did at all. I think it was just getting over the idea. Like that was Haroun confronting his trauma. He paints it more as Haroun getting over his trauma to save his new friends,
rather than by murdering the man.
It's not,
who ran off with his mom.
It's not like a selfish,
weird revenge thing.
Yeah, but
I'm Batman.
When you summarize it in
my mom.
Prepare to die. I'm Inigo Montoya. Oh God. Okay, finish this.
All right. So this is elsewhere. The Guppies meet the Chupwala. The Chupwala send an ambassador who wants them to leave, and they're like, "No, we're not going to." So he's like, "Fine, let me juggle for you." And it turns out he's a suicide bomber juggler. Because while he's juggling, he throws in, I assume, a comical, like one of those old-time bombs that's just a round ball It looks like a bowling ball with a fuse. But little did they know, Blabbermouth is a amazing juggler herself, and she spots this and manages to get the bomb away before it explodes. And then the Guppies, they win because they debated so much that they come together. And also, Katam Shud is killed by
falling
the
statue
idol falling on
Yeah.
him. The statue of his god falling
Yeah,
on him.
Kadam Shud's real body is just don't worry about it. It's done
Yeah.
now. The story's
Yeah.
over.
It's almost like Haroun show just finished it in the old zone and they didn't need this, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So this is a question I had.
Yeah.
Are the princess and the prince like a negative version of Haroun's parents? Because like the princess sings, but like really badly, just like Haroun's mom sang, but like everyone actually liked it. And the prince, he talks a lot, but like no one wants him to talk, which is the opposite of Haroun's dad, who talks a lot, but he's like going to political rallies. Is this supposed to be a thing? Like, are they supposed to be dark mirrors of one another, or what?
I didn't get that on my read through, but as you say it, it does make sense that maybe he was trying to be a little playful with that. Yeah, I could see it. I really don't. I can't think of another reason for them to be there, but maybe it's supposed to represent them when they were younger or something. Because the prince and the princess aren't married yet.
No, they get married at the end of the book, and then Haroun gets a happy ending devised by the walrus. And everyone gets a happy ending except for Butt the Hoopoe, because his brain shorts out and they put a new brain in him. And I'm like, that sounds a little horrible. Like, the first one is dead, so whatever. Anyway, happy endings for everyone, including stupid Prince Bolo and his stupid ugly wife-to-be. And then Haroun, he gets sent back, and he wakes up in the houseboat. And Rashid is like, oh, I had this weird dream. And Haroun's like, oh yeah, what was it about? And he was like, not now. I need to go tell this story to these people. And he talks for the politician. He tells them the story of Haroun and the Sea of Stories. And the crowd drives away the politician like he's forced to flee.
The crowd sees... Haroun mentions as they're traveling through the towns that the people don't seem very excited to see the politician. They're afraid of him. They're intimidated by him. And as Rashid tells the story, they begin to see themselves in the Chupwalas. And they begin to see Kadam Shud in the politician.
Even though Kadam Shud did not look like the politician, the walrus looked like the politician. Yeah. Kadam Shud look like Mr. Singupta.
Yeah, that's I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's like that's what he intended. He intended for it to be like, oh yeah, we see a lot of Kadam Shud in this guy, but like the walrus was the guy who looked like the politician. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe there's something we're not getting.
No, I think that's just how it was supposed to be.
All right. Well, because the walrus gave him a happy ending, Haroun and Rashid return home after the politician is run out of town, and they realize that their city has remembered its name, which is Kahani. And also, his mom has returned and is like, yeah, that guy, he kind of sucks.
No, what she says is, he sucks, and I'm done with him. It's over. He is Kadam Shud. And I was like, I get it. Because he was literally, yeah, I got it.
All right.
Also, get the fuck out.
Yeah. Exactly.
I never want to see you again.
She's like, I'm willing to come home if you'll have me. And they do. And I was like,
nope.
What? I can see maybe Haroun is like, I really want my mother back. But
you can see her on weekends, kid.
Yeah, exactly. The father should be like, fuck you.
No, we are done. Kadam Shud, if you would. No, that so the problem I have with that ending is not just that I don't see sufficient reason to forgive the mother, but the main problem I have with that ending is it doesn't. If this was a story to his son to explain the circumstances, that ending is contrived literally.
Maybe the plan is he's trying to write for the future, and someday someone will just come out of nowhere and be like, you know what? Let's not kill you. Let's take this
But you
bounty
could
off.
have,
Boom.
well, okay, but my thing is, you can have a happy ending that also lives with the consequences of what happened in the story. And I know it's supposed to be a fairy tale ending and everything, but look, there's a lot of kids out there who go through something like this where a parent leaves and they don't come back. And they've got to move on and be okay with that. And this story isn't it's just like, oh yeah, maybe somebody will just go and contrive your idea of a happy ending.
He couldn't satisfy my needs. I'm back now.
I didn't like that because it felt like a smack in the face to everything Haroun went through to try to get over that and save his relationship with his father. And his father, like, so the mother also got upset because the father wasn't paying attention to her, and he hasn't changed.
No, he hasn't.
So, like, this is why I said I did not like the way this was handled at all. For either parent, neither parent seemed to learn a lesson. To me, it just seemed like I wanted to explain to my son why free speech is important, and I did that with the Kadam should defeat, and now the real world also has to have a thing happen. Like, I didn't like the end. I just, it didn't resolve any of the conflicts. It didn't teach a lesson. I don't get what he was going for with this. I don't get why everything goes back to square one. The only consequence is that Mr. Sengupta's wife doesn't take him back. She stays single and she has a job now and she's doing really well for herself. I liked that. But that's my thing is, like, if the story had been about getting over a trauma, like a family breaking up, that would have been fine. But then he just, like, and they started to do that. Like, Haroun and his dad started to bond more, and Haroun started to understand the importance of his dad's work. And then they're just like, oh, okay, back here's your mom back.
You win a prize. Well, the walrus does say that a happy ending, they have to come at the end of things. So, since this isn't the end of your story, it's just going to make things better for a while. So what will probably happen is his mom will run away in like 3 years. But we don't have to see that part because the story is over from our perspective, right?
Well, what would have been better if they'd simply come back, the mom's still gone, but Mr. Sengupta's wife is happy to see them, and I don't want any romantic relationship between her and Rashid, but they live as kind of like their chosen family. And maybe towards the end of the book, Haroun sits down, picks up a pen, and starts writing his own story.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And it just seemed like Rushdie did an excellent job of talking about stories and imagination and creativity and free speech and censorship. And when it came to explaining how all of this affects his son's family, he didn't really know what to say.
Well, as far as I know, he and his wife didn't go through anything like that. So, okay. So he married his first wife, and wait, hold on. He left her in the mid 80s for the Australian writer Robin Davidson, to whom he was introduced by their mutual friend Bruce Chatwin. So he was the one who left?
I'm with you on the free speech. Mr. Rushdie.
Exactly.
This wouldn't be a problem for the target age group of children, but also I find myself distracted by Rushdie's personal life.
Yes.
Like, I keep looking for, okay, what in his life is this supposed to represent? And that also kills the story. I can't really read it on its own merits. That's not really his fault or anything, but it did get in the way of my enjoyment of the story, especially when it is advertised that way. Anything you look up about this story includes the little blurb that this is Rushdie trying to explain to his son what happened. It's like, okay,
Go on.
I feel like that would be a nice little tidbit to put in the interview. But if you're going to advertise the book, it's a good advertising strategy because Rushdie has a very sympathetic to Western audiences story of he's persecuted for his beliefs.
Right.
But that really shouldn't have anything to do with selling a children's book.
Why not?
Because you're trying to sell it to children who aren't your son. So unless it has a generalizable message, why would I want to read
there's
that?
a generalizable message. Free speech, good most of the time. And if you're willing to forgive the fact that I railed the neighbor,
well, I think it does have a generalizable message. I don't mean to say that. I just wish...
You wish there was less of his life, his like one-to-one, his life.
I wish I could have read this without knowing anything about Rushdie and then found out Rushdie's story afterward.
Okay, I get what you're saying. So it's not distracting you.
Yeah. And that's why I say it's not his fault, but it is kind of the fault of
It is his responsibility.
No, it is kind of the fault of his publishers and advertisers and all the people who summarize it. Like, it is interesting that this is a story he wrote with his son in mind, but he also wrote it to market, you know? So I just wish I hadn't known that. I don't know. I guess we're kind of getting into a douche philosophy thing about like death of the author here, but it prevented me from being able to have my own relationship to this story. Because I know that he intended this to be a story for his son and his family, and it's not for me. And so I'm not allowed to decide what it means for myself. I was told what it meant.
Right.
It is what it is.
All right. Any other thoughts?
Would you recommend it?
I think I would still recommend it. I think this is one of the books that we've read on the podcast that I'd recommend.
Who would you recommend it to? Just everybody?
Yeah, I think at least experience it for yourself because it's a short read. It's a light read. It's something you can get done in a couple days of reading. So if it's something that even sounds remotely interesting, I would advise picking it up and giving it a read.
I have a slightly harsher take, but only slightly.
Okay.
I would say I'd recommend it to younger readers. I like definitely 10 to 13 years old. I think that's really who's going to get the most out of this. If it sounds interesting, if anything sounds interesting to you, I think you should read it. But honestly, I think adults could probably pass on this. I will say I'm interested to read Rushdie's books that are for an older audience.
Maybe not the one that caused him to have a hit put out on his head.
No, I'm actually probably the most interested in reading that because apparently it's got a...
I am too, but I'm not going to say that on the podcast.
Anytime you ban a book, that just ensures people are going to seek it out.
So next month on the podcast, we're reading Mein Kampf. All right. No, take us away, Ben. What are we reading next month?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know?
I'm not going to say it.
It's Edenverse, Ben. We're reading Edenverse next month.
I don't know how I'm going to do that episode.
Episode? What about episodes?
Oh, God.
So this is going to be a very Nate-heavy episode is what it sounds like.
I'll fucking talk about it. But I'm going to be super defensive.
So if you want to hear that, it is available for free on poorlywritten.ninja or for $1 more, actually for 99 cents more on Amazon.com for the month of December. You can buy the whole book. All right, where can they find us on Twitter?
Where can they find us on Twitter? You can find us on Twitter at WABpod. You can find us on Goodreads in the Words About Books podcast group. We post all the books that are going to be coming up on there. We're also taking suggestions for next year. We have not planned out the whole year yet, so if you've got a book you'd like to hear discussed on the podcast, you can either drop us a line on Twitter or in the Goodreads group. You can check out our own writing at poorlywritten.ninja. as we mentioned before. And we have been doing additional show notes and commentary, as well as a few other interesting goodies at blog.wordsaboutbooks.ninja. And if you just don't have enough podcast content in your life and you need more words about, check out Words About Games. They're our sister podcast. They're two elderly gentlemen who discuss video games as it relates to the modern adult.
All right. Bye, everyone.
We created extra stuffer in today, Lord Capitalism. Good. Good.
Good. I will reward you with a 0.5 extra on your stocks. Go now.
We make us laugh.
Yeah.
Oh no, is Edenverse in that? Oh,
yes!
No.
It is! Oh dear, maybe that's the pollution they're dumping into the
ozone. No, the pollution they're dumping into is like all the fan fiction over on Wattpad. There's like 6,000 One Direction erotic fanfics.
Oh God, that's probably what it is. You're right.
Kadam Shud's like, I've manufactured the perfect poison.
Looks suspiciously like the man who ran off with Haroun's mom and railed her.
I wasn't ready.
I know you weren't.